Today is February the 16th, 2021. We're here at Johnson House Prayer in Haynesville, Alabama. We're meeting the requirements of the Montgomery Area Food Bank. We're having two training sessions. We're going to be doing the Montgomery Area Food Bank orientation training, and we're also going to be doing the Civil Rights Authority training so that we can meet the requirements of our food bank. The first training we're going to do is the Montgomery Area Food Bank orientation training. If all the students that are here, if you see the first page on the Montgomery Area Food Bank orientation, the agenda is inmate training. I looked through the package, really didn't have any information really on inmate training. The only thing I saw on inmate training is because of the pandemic, the prison system are no longer allowing inmates to leave their facility. So it's been almost a year since the food bank didn't have the privilege of being blessed to have inmates to help them with probably loading food and packing food to be sent out. Prayerfully, once the Lord, lift this pandemic, that we can be blessed with the help of the inmates again. I'm thinking just a brief sidebar that one of the things that we need to be mindful of when the inmates do get back, to the food bank, that we're not allowed to give them money because they're not allowed to take money back to the institution. So as once they get back activated, just make sure, because they probably ask you for money, because sometimes they do that, but make sure you don't give them any money or anything, okay? We're going to be talking about the food safety training, and we're going to be talking about the civil rights training. Go to the first page. We've already got our sign-in sheet completed. We just briefly went over the agenda. We briefly talked about the inmate training. We're going to be covering food safety training. We're going to be going over the civil rights training. Food safety. Everybody turn to the food safety page. Most of this is common knowledge if you all have went through your package about making sure food is secure and food is safe. But we're going to go over it and read over it briefly so that that we can meet the requirements to make sure everybody that's actively serving in our church food bank program is aware of all these guidelines so that all of us can be on one accord. Food safety is an important public health issue. The Montgomery Area Food Bank must ensure all food and household products distributed to the agency are handled, transported, and stored in a safe and appropriate manner and are in compliance with the Food and Drug Administration, Feeding America state, county, and city regulation and guidelines. In turn, the agency must ensure that this same level of food safety in their service to the community. Partner agencies such as Johnson House of Prayer must implement specific food handling measures to ensure that product being distributed is safe. The transportation of food, the dry products. When we transport dry product, we need to make sure that they're transported in a clean and a dry vehicle or a trailer. It don't have to be closed in, but the food bank recommend that we try to get a vehicle that's enclosed. And what we have been doing to meet those requirements is actually renting a U-Haul to transport our food from the food bank to our church to be distributed. So we're meeting that particular requirement. Not just that, but it also have to be, the food has to be, kind of secure, and the food bank does a real good job at, even before we get there, they already got it packed, they already got it wrapped, they already got it tied down. So all we need to make sure is that we have the proper mode of transportation, and we're doing that. The temperature control product. Food safety guidelines require the use of an active or passive temperature control when picking up products from the Montgomery Area Food Bank. Is this food still good? And it's just identifying, some of the codes that are actually on food products. The first code is the code date that's on all food products. The code date, the manufacturing stamp numbers on products so that they can know when their food is produced. This is helpful, and just in case there's a recall, every now and then because of bacteria infection and stuff like that. Sometimes they have to recall the food, so that way they can track it and they can know exactly when it was made, and not just when it was made, but also when it was packed. The manufacturer had a packing date. Product may be stamped with a date preceded by the manufacturer. This date can also be used along with recommendations shelf life for guidance on how long a product will have its best flavor and quality. The best if used by date. This particular training talks about whenever you buy food from a grocery store, it'll always have a, not an expiration date, but best used by date. Okay, and based on this information that they've given us, that just simply means that the food, if you use it before this date, you're gonna have the best taste and you're gonna have the best flavor. Okay, it doesn't mean that once that date comes that food is spoiled, it's not any good. It's still good. Okay, but it's best to use before that date they put on there for the best flavor and the best color. Okay, the expiration date is the date the manufacturer recommends the product be used by for best quality and flavor. And a lot of times, even with the expiration date, if you store it, in a pretty, especially frozen food, you can store frozen food, although the expiration date may be today. If you freeze it, it can really be extended to a longer time. Okay, I would just encourage you all, and that's what we're going to do if we're not storing food at our, because once we get it, we distribute it out. But if we ever get to a place where we're going to store food, we get a large enough facility so we can store food, and what we're going to do is once we freeze food, we're going to mark the date that we put it in the freezer, okay? So that we can have an idea of how long it's been in the freezer. Pull or sell by date. The manufacturer recommends that this be the last date the products can be sold in retail stores. And this really doesn't have anything to do really with the food bank, and really don't have anything to do with us. Grocery stores and retail dealers, they don't, I guess through the USDA, they have different guidelines. Once that date is actually met, they're gonna have to get rid of that food. But that's not so with the food bank and with those of us that serve in the community, because just like we said, just because it's after the best used date or actually the expiration date, that doesn't necessarily mean that food is not any good. But with retailers, this product will remain safe and wholesome for a reasonable amount of time for use after purchase. The amount of time depends on the product type and the storage condition. Freezing. Many products can be frozen to extend the acceptable storage time, like I was saying. Freezing a product holds it at a present state. Bacteria cannot grow in a freezer, but if you put food in a freezer that already been full of bacteria, the freezer or the cold weather is not going to kill the bacteria. So you need to make sure that we don't store any food that's already been molded or have bacteria on it. Don't freeze any of that. Make sure it's good before we freeze it. And that's what they're trying to tell us now. Food recall. The Montgomery Food Bank with partners will use the following process for recall products. I'm assuming that if anything get recalled, the food bank will notify all of us to pull this food off our shelf. This is the process that they use. When the Montgomery Food Bank received notification of a product recall from the FDA, that's the Food and Drug Administration, or Feeding America, it will remove that product from the shelf within 24 hours. The Montgomery Food Bank will notify through emails to all of the shoppers, partner agents of the recall products within 24 hours. A representation from rural, suburban, and metro agencies across the service area. Members must commit to serve for 2 years with staggered terms. Subgroups will be formed as needed for specific tasks and identified goals. I guess it's really saying that once you enroll as a food bank agency, you need to at least be planning to do that particular ministry for at least 2 years. Go to the next page. Food safety. Now this is the quiz. We basically covered everything. So you all have a quiz sheet. And go through this quick quiz real quick, right? And I have the answer sheet right here, but we're just gonna go over real quick. The most important part of personal hygiene that prevents germs and bacteria from being transferred to food is by, and this is basically really common sense, but the most effective, way, to make sure you keep your personal hygiene up and prevent, the spread of germs. And it has 4 answers: cleaning everything in sight, wearing clean clothes every day, wearing disposable gloves, washing your hands, personal hygiene. So out of those 4 answers, which would be the best one for the most effective part of personal hygiene to prevent the germs and bacteria from being transferred to food? Is by what? washing your hands and personal hygiene. The best way to prevent contamination of food is to make sure you keep your hands clean. And not just keep your hands clean, but keep your body clean.
Yeah, right.
You don't want your hands clean and your body filthy, okay? Because there could be a transference even from your body. And you know, if your body is dirty, you may wash your hand, but people tend to touch their body from time to time. So if you're storing food or you're dispensing food, and if your body ain't clean, maybe you wash your hand, but sooner or later you're gonna touch your body, you're gonna touch something and get your hands back, you know, dirty again. So make sure you not only clean your hand, but make sure your body is clean too when you're storing food or you're dispensing food. Number 2, food is made unsafe by unsafe temperature, biological, physical, and chemical contaminant, bad hygiene, or all of the above. Out of those 3 things, which one of those 3 things that could make food unsafe? D, all of the above. Unsafe temperature will make food, you know, go bad. Biological, physical, and chemical contaminant will make food go bad. And bad hygiene, you know, if you don't keep yourself clean when you're handling food, it'll cause the food to be unsafe. Number 3, what happens when a food containing allergens or bacteria comes in contact with other food? Okay? It's saying that what if you got some food that's spoiled, and that food that's spoiled coming in contact with good food. Okay? Y'all understand what I'm saying? You storing food, or you're trying to, you know, dish your food out, and you find out that some food is spoiled, but you notice that spoiled food has come into contact with good food. So the question is, what does that mean? Is it cross contact, nothing, cross contamination, or biological contact? Which one y'all think it is? It's C, is cross contamination. You know, you transfer, you know, if good food bad food touch good food, it's going to cross contaminate that good food. And so even the good food, if you don't keep it separate, you know, it's going to be bad. You can't use it. You can't give it out. Okay. Number 4, hands and arms should be scrubbed with soap for how many seconds? And this was a good one that I needed to know. So when you wash and scrub your hand with soap, how many seconds should you think you should, you know, wash and scrub your hand? B. Somebody said B. B is what?
46.
46. Well, D, you right. D is right. You need to scrub your hand and wash your hand from 10 to 15 seconds. And most of us do that. You know, most of us do that because by the time you wet your hand, you put the soap on, you wash your hand, you dry, you know, you cleanse your hand, you wipe the soap off. Most of the time it's over 10 to 15 seconds. So make sure you don't just go, you know, just to fulfill this requirement. So you wash your hand, you put a little soap on, you put it on the water, then you just dry it. You don't really clean them. You need to clean them. Make sure they're clean because you're dealing with food that people going to be putting in their mouth, people going to eat. Amen. So make sure you do a thorough job of cleaning your hand. Number 5, when should you wash your hands? After touching the hair of the body, before you take out the garbage, after you put on gloves, before you sneeze or cough or use a tissue. So y'all look at that real quick. Like, I think which one is the best answer? Number 5, Danny, you said after you put on gloves, you wash your hands. D.
That's an A.
And check your hair in the bottom.
Okay, Danny, you said D, before you sneeze. You want to wash your hands before you sneeze or cough or use a tissue?
Okay, no.
No.
Okay.
D, you said what?
A.
A. After touching the hair of the body. A is the correct answer. Okay? When preparing or repacking food, the hair should be clipped back with hairpin, covered with a hat or other hair covering, pulled away from the face, cut short. Which one you all think is the appropriate answer for number 6? B. Covered, right. B is the answer. Covered with a hat or other hair covering. So whenever we packing food or, you know, giving away food, and basically this is really talking about, you know, agencies that actually cook food and serve food. Okay? It's not really talking about those like we do, and most of our food is already wrapped in this container, so we don't really need to wear, you know, things to protect our hair because the food is I mean, it's not open, okay? But it's talking about those agencies. A lot of agencies are serving food. They're cooking food and they're serving food. whenever you're cooking food and serving food on the food line, you know, if you're a worker, you need to make sure that you have your head covered, your hair covered, either with a hat or some other protective, you know, garment to keep the hair from falling in the food, okay? Number 7, which symptoms should prevent an individual from handling food? Which one of these symptoms should prevent folks from handling food? You think it's D, vomiting?
Sweating.
A, sweating, B, headaches, and C, dizzy. Okay, the answer they got, these symptoms,
We got
group 7 is D. D. It should be, but these for some reason, because you're sweating, that can contaminate food.
Yeah,
Headache shouldn't bother it, dizziness shouldn't bother it. But I think sweating should bother it too, because you can contaminate food when you sweat, you know, real bad. But I guess if you're handling food, you're gonna do some sweating. So I guess that's what they're saying. But you need to make sure, even in the kitchen, that you got it kind of cool so you won't sweat too much. But it's really vomiting, okay? Verse 8, antiseptic hand cleanser should be used. You know, we're talking about all that stuff we use now, hand sanitizer. It should be used, okay? And I know people do this, and I don't understand it. In place of hand washing, in place of gloves, after you wash your hands, or before you wash your hands. When should you sanitize your hand?
D.
We got C and we got what?
D.
D. D is before you wash your hand. Or C is after you wash your hand.
A. Place of hand washing.
Connor, you said in place of hand washing.
Yeah,
D,
but
you're right. Now, you know, hand sanitizer don't get rid of dirt, okay? It don't make your hand clean. It sanitize your hand.
Oh.
Right, and a lot of
The
people,
word clean.
right, and a lot of people, what they do is they stop washing their hand, and all they use is just sanitizer. Well, if you go outdoors and you get your hand dirty, right? Well, if you just use sanitizer, you know, if you just sanitize your hand, okay, your hands are not clean. Okay, so the thing you need to do is make sure you wash your hands still with soap and water for those 10 to 15 seconds. And after you wash your hand 10 to 15 seconds, that soap is dried off, then you put the, you know, the sanitizer on there. Okay, and then your hands is not just clean, but it's sanitized. Okay, and that's what you need to always do when you cook it. You know, when you're handling, you know, open food. Okay, verse 9. Number 9. Food storage areas should be kept dust free. Be kept clean from dirt and pests. Be scrubbed from ceiling to floor with a mixture of bleach and water before every food delivery. D, used to store food and chemicals together. Which one of you all think that the answer is number 9? Number 9.
Me too.
B is the right answer. In place, and B is right to be kept. Yeah, number 9. Be kept clean from dirt and pests. Number 9B is the best answer. Okay, food storage areas should be kept clean from dirt and pests, like roaches and rats and stuff like that. Okay, verse 10. Frozen food should be kept frozen. Will be fine even if it thaws out. Should not be distributed while frozen. Can sit out without a concern. Which one do you think is most appropriate? 10. The answer is A. Frozen food should always be kept frozen. Always be kept frozen. Okay? Number 11. Food must be stored at least. Food must be stored. So when we storing food, when we store food, it should be stored at least 10 inches above the floor, 12 inches above the floor, 3 inches above the floor, 6 inches above the floor. Which answer you think is right? D, 12 inches. Anybody else?
6
6 inches. D, you right. Food must be stored according to the Foodbank regulation. If they inspect you, your food needs to be off the floor at least 6 inches. You remember that, okay? The food needs to be off the floor at least 6 inches. Verse 12. Signs food should not be used include. This is food that, you know, when you look at it, you might say, well, we don't need to give this out, okay, because of what it looked like. If you look at food and the cans are swollen with loose lid, the food is leaking, the food got mold, dirt, signs of pests, or all of the above. All all of the above. We find that we get food and we get it out these boxes and we see after we get it out these boxes that, you know, a swollen can, a loose lid, leakage, a mold and dirt, a pest, we need to throw away that food, okay? Verse 13, food that may drip on other food should be stored. Food that may drip on other food, okay? Should be stored, like you're storing it in the refrigerator, freezer, or the shelf, but you notice that it might drip on other food, okay, over a period of time. That food should be stored on the top shelf, away from other food, on the bottom shelf, in a plastic bag with other food that may leak. What's the answer number 13?
See? See?
A,
Someone says C, in a plastic bag,
Or either on the bottom
A,
shelf.
on the top shelf, away from other food. That's what you said, D? 13 is actually, the food bank says B, on the top shelf, because, you know,
On the bottom shelf.
on the bottom shelf, yeah, because if it's gonna leak, if it's on the bottom shelf, it can't contaminate anything, yeah. If it's on the top shelf, it's gonna drop on everything else, but if on the bottom shelf, it's just gonna go on the floor, okay? So if the food that we've stored, you know, after we get it out of these boxes, okay, if it's the type of food that's a possibility that it's gonna leak, we need to make sure, you know, as we store it, we put that kind of food on the bottom shelf. So if it does leak, it's not gonna contaminate the other food. And the last one is FIFO stands for. FIFO stands for. I think it's A, food in, front only, first in, first out, fine, in, front, once, food is for one. Which one do you think it is? The answer is first in, first out.
A.
It's B, first in, first out.
yeah, B.
That simply means that the oldest food should go out first. First in, first out. The first food we get needs to be the first food we get out. That's how we do it at our house. You know, when you go to the grocery store and you buy more food, I make sure I put the food that was already in there on the front so I can get rid of it. Because if I don't, it's gonna end up spoiling or getting too old, and I'm gonna have to end up throwing it away. So if we ever get to the point where we got a facility where we can store food, what we'll do is make sure that the first food that we get is the first food that we get out to the public, okay? And that concludes, now, let me go over these rules and regulations real quick, I never conclude, the orientation program for those that will be handling food. Rules and regulations that must be followed. Rule number 1, thou should not sell food bank food. That's a main thing. You notice that's all caps in bold letters. Thou shalt not sell food. You cannot sell food bank food. If you all ever hear anybody, okay, selling this food that we get from the food bank, you all need to contact me, Deacon Griffin, Pastor Alexander, Missionary Johnson. Make sure, I don't care who it is, okay? Because that's a violation, okay? And it's really against the law, okay? Food bank food is not to be sold, okay?
I should be, but that's what, not to treat anybody.
That's anybody that's getting food from the food, any organization that's getting food from the food bank, okay? Because they're selling to us for a little of nothing. Okay, and the purpose of it is for us to help the federal government, the state and county, you know, to help people to lift some of that burden off of, you know, our government agency. That's why they do it. And so we need to make sure we're doing it as charity. Okay, we giving it, you know, if we're giving it away. All right? Y'all with me? In order to remain active in the program of the food bank, an agency must acquire at least 100 pounds and at least 2 shopping visits in an 18-month period. So in order to stay active with the food bank, you got to at least purchase in a year and a half. You know, I don't see why anybody shouldn't fulfill this particular obligation. Just 1,000 pounds of food and just 2 shopping days out of a year and a half. So you must meet that requirement, because if you don't meet that requirement, you know, they're probably gonna terminate your shopping privileges, okay? You must make an appointment. You cannot just show up and expect to shop. If you make an appointment and do not call within 24 hours to cancel it, your agency will be sent an invoice, or they're going to charge you $25 for no show, just like doctor's office, okay? And you can't shop again until you pay that $25, okay? If you find you are running late, please call and let us know. If you're going to be more than 15 minutes late, you must reschedule. Remember that. If you're gonna be more than 15 minutes late, we must reschedule. If you're gonna be late, call. One person who comes to the shop to get your agency must be an approved shopper. So everybody that's gonna have the authority to shop, they got to be approved, okay? And they got to be
That's shopping, right?
right shopping. You know, the one that's gonna sign for the food and the one that's gonna do the shopping. And you're not you just volunteer to help pick up and whatnot, but the actual one that's gonna sign the invoice, okay, they need to be approved ahead of time, okay? And then it says that attending orientation class alone does not make you approved. We must have proof in writing from your agency pastor or director that you are approved to shop. So in order for someone to be approved to shop and sign the invoice with Johnson House of Prayer, it got to be approved through me or Missionary Johnson, okay? If you are planning to turn in a pre-order, you must make your appointment before you submit your order. And that's basically for Connie, you know, that's the one that's over the program. She does all of that, so we don't need to have, you know, too much knowledge about that. There must be 3 full business days between the day you submit your order and the day you schedule your appointment. If the holidays fall in those 3 days, you cannot count it as a business day. Like I said, Connie is taking care of all of that, okay? Each shopping visit must be paid by the church organizational check. You can't pay with cash and you can't pay with personal check, okay? It's got to come from the church or whatever organization that's in partnership with the food bank. Y'all understand what they're saying? August is after the first 2020, we will accept agency credit cards or debit cards. And I don't think they got the capability at the Montgomery Food Bank to take the debit card at this time, okay? So we're using check. It cannot be personal, credit, or debit, because the same thing with that, it can't be personal. It has to be the church or the organizational debit card, okay? Once your agency has been established with the food bank, once your agency has been established as you know, for and paying like you're supposed to pay, they'll allow you to request a charge account. Okay, so after you've been faithful in paying, okay, and you ain't got no bounce checks, okay, then they can kind of, you know, they see that you're pretty trustworthy, so they'll let you set up a charge account, okay? Monthly invoice, this is something kind of do too. Monthly invoice will be sent out at the end of each month and will be due by the 15th of the following month. Cutting handles all of that for us. Food acquired at the food bank cannot be sent overseas. It cannot even go across the state line. You can't transfer food overseas. You can't send it over food. You can't send it to your soldiers, okay? You can't send it to someone in a different state. They have to stay within that state because all the states have their own food bank program. Y'all understand what I'm saying? So we cannot do that. The only exception is during emergency. The only exception to cross the state line is in case of disaster, and that must be approved by the Montgomery Area Food Bank. During disasters, the food bank would authorize us to do it, but you got to contact them before you do it, okay? If your agency bounces 3 checks within 1 year, your agency will be inactive for 3 months with no shopping. The bounce check will have to be paid in full before that agency will be able to reactivate and shop. Agency, regardless of the method of how they receive the donation product, directly from the member through the store donation pickup program, access mobile pantry product, may only distribute donated products to clients. Agencies may not distribute donated products to other food bank member agencies. So you can't take food from one agency to the next. It ain't like we got another food church or agency that's giving away food. We can't take our food and give it to them so they can give it. We can't do that. Okay. This is a directive from the National Food Bank Network, Feed America. By transferring products to other agencies, there is no clear path as to where and how that food is being distributed. You cannot track it. Please put this rule in force in your agency if it applies. You know, the food bank, at times, they come in and they'll audit, okay? They'll do an audit, okay? That's why Connie makes sure that everybody that gets food from us, whether it's, you know, the senior boxes or whether it's food that we purchase, that person, number one, we have to have them registered, okay, on a registration form. That registration form we supply to the food bank, and every time they get the food, they have to have a signature, okay, that verifying that they actually got that food. Don't ever give food to people that's not registered, okay? And don't ever give food to people without them signing a signature, because the food bank will audit it. I mean, they can call those people at any given time. They ain't got to notify us if they call people to check. you know, whether or not these people have actually got that food, okay? And they have all the address, name, and phone numbers of everybody that we say that we're giving food to. So y'all need to make sure, okay, that if a person comes to get food, that they've been registered, and not only have they been registered, but that they signed for the food. Y'all understand what we're saying? Okay?
Let me speak on that a little bit too.
Go ahead, sir.
You know, for every distribution, you know, there's a list printed out, and the list matches our application. So if a person comes in and the name is not on the list, we cannot write that person's name in, you know, and go ahead and give that person a box. And you know, a lot of that been happening in the past. And then also with the senior box is a little bit more restricted than the regular bag, because the senior boxes, I have to do a spreadsheet every month. And that spreadsheet contains 60 names that goes up to the Montgomery Area Food Bank. Okay, and when Jolene look at that list and look at the list that of the signatures, so we have 62 slots and we have 65 names on there, and the name that matches what's on the spreadsheet, you know, that'll let her know that there's discrepancy going on. And I say this all the time, and we don't take time and do it right, you know, when we have our monitoring or audit or whatever, it's not gonna affect the volunteers or the workers, it's gonna affect the pastor. And that's why I'm so hard on that when we do the distribution, that we be very careful to follow the names on the sheets. You know, we can't, just because your friend come in, you just can't go ahead and get that person a box. So we're gonna have to put that really in check, you know, really in check, because that, you know, those signatures and whatnot is so important.
And if you all find anybody that's giving away, that's actually giving people food, senior boxes, and they're not registered, y'all need to contact me, Connie, Deacon Griffin, you know, one of the the officers in the church, to let us know immediately. Okay, it's not that that person will get in trouble. It may be they just don't have knowledge of it. Okay, but we need to make sure that we do things decently and in order. We need to make sure we do things in the guidelines of the food bank, because if we don't, we can end up, you know, being cut off from the program. And, you know, why would we want to be cut off from a program that's blessing our community, blessing our people? Okay, so we need to make sure we do everything above board.
And also, like Saturday, distribution Saturday, we had 7 no-shows. But we had 9 people on the waiting list. So those 9 people on the waiting list couldn't the 6 qualify, you know, for those boxes. But they only get a temporary, they'll become a permanent. Only way a person become a permanent, like Mr. Taylor, you know, when we took his last box, he said he didn't need any more food. So his name came off the active list, and his name went on the inactive list. So we were able to take somebody off the waiting list and make them active customers. But that's the only way that somebody can get a box. But their name has to be on that waiting list.
You see, with the senior boxes, that's not the boxes that we pay for.
Right.
Okay, those are boxes that the food bank gives us free. Okay, and you know, they have probably hundreds of agencies. Okay, and so they have to try to distribute it, you know, equally among all the agencies. So we don't determine how many people we can give senior boxes. We don't make that determination. The food bank make that determination. Okay, and everybody that gets a senior box, they're already registered at the food bank. We can't add people to arbitrarily just because they're senior. We cannot add them, you know, to a list. Okay, we can add them and put them on a waiting list. Okay, and the food bank possibly, you know, with the new administration, it may be, if they give us more funding, they may increase that number. But at the same time, they may decrease that number at any time. Okay, so just let our clients and our community people know. You know, a lot of times they get upset because they think because they're seniors, they supposed to get a box, but we don't have any control over that. There's just so many boxes that the food bank allowed us to give out, and those names are already been recorded. And like I say, we have some extra people that's on that list, but those people can only get boxes if that is a person that's, for whatever reason, they don't come get their box, or they don't want their box, and then we can go on the reserve list. We can't give it to anybody.
Right.
Okay? We have to give to those people that's registered with the food bank as part of that program that's on the reserve list. Okay? So if you come into a problem with anybody complaining because they didn't get a food box, you need to be able to explain that to them. Explain it that in order for them to get it, if they're not a regular client, they have to be on that reserve list to get it. And the way Connie is doing the reserve list is what she's doing if a certain person don't want the food for that month because they got no food or they decided, that they don't want it for whatever reason, she's going down that reserve list and she's rotating it out.
Right.
She's
And it's
rotated
done-
out.
And it's done by, they got an application.
Right, the date of the
Uh-huh,
application.
application.
So y'all understand?
Mm-hmm.
Okay, the last training we got to do is the civil rights training. So y'all can pull that up, real quick, like we're gonna go over that. No,
This goes in when you send your certificate.
I don't know whether or not we have to, data orientation. Put the agency, I guess kind of you have to send at least one copy of this. You see that one?
Yeah,
With the signature page.
I see it.
Okay, all right, so we need to make sure we get that to Jolene. Okay, I sent the civil rights training to your email. Those of you all that able to pull up, go ahead and pull up and go through that real quick. Like, and it's 62 pages, but it's real short. Okay, it's real short. Okay.
I got another person, have, I'm telling you, like somebody, like one of them, or somebody, I like my next sister-in-law.
Okay.
Up there, if she's sick, could I get a food, she got a lot of melon, tail, another stuff, then my friend out there and trying to keep my food come sick for that month, how could we do that?
You saying she's not able to come get it because she's sick? Well, we can always carry it to them. There ain't no problem. We just need to make sure we get their signature. Or we take it to their home. But we need to get their signature.
And then got another question, like some food you be called, what you do, some of the food you be called. Like on TV, some of that food you be called, so what you do, the food
You know,
be called.
I went through that. The food bank will notify us, okay, within 24 hours, okay, and let us know which food that they've given us as we called. And what we need to do if the client got it, we need to contact the client
Okay,
and let them know that they don't need to eat that, they need to throw that away.
okay.
You understand? But
I
that's the
know.
food bank responsibility. But they're not gonna know, the FDA ain't gonna notify us, they're gonna notify the food bank, and the food bank will notify us within 24 hours, and we need to go ahead and immediately notify our client.
Okay.
Okay? Connie, you got yours yet?
Yeah, I have mine, but I'm looking for Ernestine, I don't see her.
Mine don't jump though.
See, her phone,
Her phone.
it ain't, cause like I said, her email wasn't set up.
Oh, that's what it is.
So they're just gonna have to listen very carefully. Yeah, they're gonna have to listen. It wouldn't come up. Okay, she's gonna have to listen, cause it ain't
Okay.
working. It ain't working, Connie.
Okay,
It ain't working, Connie.
okay, but she has another email account too though.
Yeah, but it ain't working.
Okay,
Okay.
all right.
The Civil Rights Act. Before we get started, I want to cover, because these acronyms are abbreviations. I have to cover these abbreviations because if we don't cover these abbreviations, we're not gonna understand what they're talking about. Okay? Abbreviation is like, like Danny Braxton. That's your name, right?
Mhm.
Your abbreviation would be what? DB. Danny. D stands for Danny, and B stands for Braxton.
Mhm.
So as we go through this training, there's gonna be some abbreviation.
Okay,
But before, we go through the training, I wanna tell you what the abbreviations mean,
okay.
okay? The CSFP, and I know you hear Connie talking about that all the time, the CSFP, it stands for the Commodity Supplement Food. That's what that stands for, Commodity Supplement Food. And basically, Connie, what's that? That's really just a food bank thing.
Mm-hmm.
That's basically food bank.
That's it, now the CSFP, they're basically the senior boxes. That's,
Because-
when you hear me talk about the CSFP,
Mhm.
that's in reference to the senior boxes.
Okay,
Okay.
those are the CSFP is this
Mhm.
Commodity Supplement
Right.
Food Program. That's the senior box.
Mm-hmm.
Okay, so whenever you're gonna say the CSFP, he's talking about senior boxes. As we go through this training, when we see CFSP, we know he's talking about the senior boxes.
Mhm.
Okay, put that down. Boxes. LEP, it stands for Limited English Proficiency. That's people that's English is their second language. Like you might have Mexican,
Mhm.
or you might have Arabs. They may speak some English, but it's not going to be as clear as a person that was born here. It's just like if we go to another country, we may understand some of the words that they're saying, we're not gonna understand everything, okay? So whenever you see LEP, that means we're talking about those people that's not American, okay? They speak other languages. Or they have limited intelligence. Maybe they're mentally retarded, maybe they're mentally ill, okay, and they have difficulties, understanding. Okay, that's just like a person that don't speak clear English. If, although they've been in their whole life, but they challenge, they mentally challenge. Okay, they may struggle with understanding things. That would be another example of a limited, English proficiency person. Okay. Title 16, you're gonna see that. Title 16 is a section of the 1964 Civil Rights that protects discrimination, okay, on the basis of color, disability, national origin, age, and sex. Okay, that's what Title 16 is. That's discrimination. You cannot discriminate against people based on their color, whether or not they're disabled, if they're disabled or not, the national origin, what country they're from, the age, whether they're young or old, and their sex, whether they're male or female. Okay? ADAAA, that's the American with Disability Acts Amendment. That protects individuals from being discriminated based on disability in the workplace and in educational institutions. Okay? CRD, that's a Central Registration Depository. They keep records on all stockholders of people invested in the program. Every government program, is, a lot of it's funded by taxes, but a lot of times you have other agencies that actually give money, okay, into those different programs. So I want y'all to be aware of those abbreviations before we get started real quick. And let's go ahead and get into the Civil Rights Authority. Title 16. That's the first page, as you were. Civil Rights Training for the CSFP. That's the senior boxer. That's what it is, kind of, right? It's the senior boxers. Go to the second page, the agenda, Civil Rights Program and Legal Authority, areas of compliance. That's basically just the index right there, so we can skip that page, okay? Civil Rights Authority. This is the authority that protects civil rights. It's Title 16. So whenever you hear people talk about Title 16, no matter where you hear it, it ain't got to be about food. It could be about work. It could be about job. It could be about housing. You understand what I'm saying? Okay. The Title 16 of the Civil Rights Act 1964 protects people in America from being discriminated based on those things I've covered. Okay. The Civil Rights Restoration Act of 1987, although they passed the 1964 Civil Rights Act, but in 1987 they kind of modified it, to make it a lot clearer. And so they said clarified the scope of the Title 16 Civil Rights Act of 1964. Okay. The next page, Civil Rights Authority. Section 504 of the Rehabilitation Act of 1973 and American with Disabilities Act of 1999 as amended by the American with Disability Acts of 2008. These are other clarifications of the Civil Rights Acts of 1964 based on disability, sex, and age, okay? I'm gonna just skip all of these Civil Rights Authorities because we don't really need to know that, all right? Go to what is discrimination. The whole purpose of the civil rights training is to make sure we don't do anything that would discriminate against people based on their color, race, disability, national origin, okay, or sex. What is discrimination? The definition of discrimination, according to the United States Department of Agriculture, different treatment which makes a distinction of one person or group of person from others, either intentionally, by neglect, or by the action or lack of action based on a protected class. So they're saying you discriminate a person. Now, all discrimination ain't really discrimination, okay, if you don't know, if you didn't do it intentionally, okay? Because all of us make mistakes. We may not even realize we're doing something wrong until somebody brings it to our attention, okay, then we can correct it. But they're talking about either intentionally, by neglect. You can discriminate a person by neglecting them, okay, by not serving them. You understand what I'm saying? They just say we have a certain group of people in our community that's not African American. Okay, they may be Caucasian. Okay, but because we're an African American dominant church, okay, and we may be struggling with racism, and so we decided not to even serve them. Okay, because they're white. That's discrimination. Okay, by neglect. All right, failing to get the information out. to those particular people, okay, that's discrimination, okay? If we got a food program to help the community, in a certain section out in our community that we don't like, we just don't get that, make sure they don't get, try our best not to get the information to them. That's discrimination also, all right? And it's talking about discrimination concerning this food program. It protect classes from the senior boxes. You can't discriminate based on their race, their color, their national origin, their age, their sex, or their disability.
Amen.
Assurances. To qualify for federal financial assistance, an applicant must assure in writing that the applying entity will comply with all non-discrimination laws, regulations, instruction policies, and guidelines. What this is telling us that since we are partner with the food bank, we had to sign paperwork. We had to sign paperwork, legal paperwork, okay, that's saying that we will not discriminate. You understand what I'm saying? If you don't sign that paperwork saying that you will not discriminate, the food bank ain't gonna let you be part of the program. Y'all understand what I'm saying? The civil rights assurance statement must be incorporated in all of agreements between the federal and the CSFP state agencies, and sub-recipients agencies, and local sites. That means that everybody that's involved in this food program, this free food program, which is commodity really, okay? Whether it's state, federal, state, local, a church or another